But to start out, David Frum is on the line with us. He's the author of 10 books, most recently Trumpocalypse, Restoring American Democracy, former speechwriter, special assistant to President George W. Bush, excuse me. His most recent piece for The Atlantic is absolutely fascinating. It's titled, "The GOP is Just Obnoxious." David, welcome back to the program. Been a while since we've talked. I'm glad you could join us.
Hello again.
Yeah. So your argument, I mean, you know, you go through Dr. Oz being a jerk and multiple others throughout the Republican Party. What is it specifically that, in your opinion, is causing so many Americans to turn against the Republican Party? I mean, it sounds like you think that it's all this obnoxious performance art that they're doing, owning the libs, which doesn't seem to be a thing on the left, of owning the cons, you know?
Right. Well, I opened the piece by telling the story of what happened to Dr. Oz in the 2022 Senate race in Pennsylvania. Dr. Oz was not a crazy choice of candidate for the Republicans. He would have been, if elected, the first Muslim in the U.S. Senate, as far as we know, which would have been an important act of diversity for the Republican Party. He started his career as an extremely eminent heart surgeon, with a dozen patents to his credit that have really changed and improved the treatment of heart disease. Then he went into a career as a TV pitchman, and while I personally don't approve of what he was doing, there's no question that millions of people found it deeply meaningful. And so maybe he wouldn't get my vote, but he would get the vote of millions of people who'd seen him on TV and trusted him and admired him thanks to his magazines and TV shows. He was charismatic, he was good, he was handsome, and he was trying to find his way to a kind of moderate politics. So he sometimes got himself in trouble by tripped over his feet on the abortion issue by trying to be all things to all people, but he was not a fanatic. However, he was running against someone who had chronic health problems, and which exploded into a stroke during the campaign, John Fetterman. And at that point, as someone with this huge medical reputation, Dr. Oz had an opportunity. He could have struck a compassionate tone. He could have said something that would have shown people in Pennsylvania that he was, you know, he was a Republican, sure, but he had a heart, he cared for people, and he could have been gracious. And instead, he trolled and trolled and trolled and trolled, and he lost the race, a winnable race for him, by 4 points. So I tell that story as a way of illustrating that even when, you know, other things are going right for you, you know, this is a country of basically decent people. Most people are basically decent. If you show them decency in yourself, that's a plus. Most successful candidates try to look like someone you'd like, but there's been this imperative in the Trump years among Republicans to show yourself as someone who most people would not like.
Why do you think that is? I mean, we could get into a conversation about, you know, how Buckley and Bellotti, these two decisions in the 70s, altered the Republican Party, certainly the Reagan administration, and then, you know, Clinton in '92 kind of jumped into the same thing, and it distorted the Democratic Party for a number of years. I think the Democratic Party's recovering, the Republican Party's not so much. They're still kind of in the thrall of corporate money, but that doesn't explain just being a dick, you know? Why is it that and you know, I think most of us, well, I don't know how many people grew up being bullied as a kid. I mean, I certainly did. I was a skinny, geeky kid, you know? It seems to me like they've become the party of bullies. Like this is their highest value now, is either, you know, insecure men strutting around with giant guns, you know, with giant synthetic penises strapped to their chests, you know, or you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene trying to own the libs and talk about how Democrats hate America. I mean, where is this coming from? Is this just a reflection of Donald Trump, or is this deeper and older?
No, so I invite people, especially those of us who are middle-aged or older, conjure up in your mind your mental images of successful winning politicians. Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, Obama. What do you see them doing in your mind? They're probably doing something that looks affable, pleasant. You know, Reagan's chuckle, Clinton's down-home charm, Jimmy Carter's million-watt smile. Obama had his whole face would light up. George W. Bush, you know, famously personable. That's, whether you agreed with them or not, you could see they were trying to be someone whom most people would find attractive. Now ask yourself, did you ever see Donald Trump smiling, except when he was thinking of the suffering of somebody else.
Yeah, seriously.
And have you ever seen, say, Ron DeSantis looking like he's even having any kind of good day, even on his own terms? And I think this does have something to do with Trump. And it has something to do with the Republican inability to process what a fluky bit of good luck Donald Trump had in 2016. So if you think about the elections since the year 2000, there have been 6 presidential elections, 12 major party nominees. If you stack them by share of the popular vote, Donald Trump ranks 10th and 11th. Only John McCain did worse in 2008, and he was running as basically an incumbent in the worst economy since the Great Depression and during the worst war since Vietnam.
Right.
So he's and that's not his fault, but he's a special case. He's got like all the wind in his face. Trump was a uniquely unpopular candidate, but he kept insisting he'd won this historic victory. Republicans pretended, or some of them genuinely believed him, and they thought, okay, he's found something about America that no one ever knew before, which is you can be rewarded for being a dick. Except it turns out that wasn't true. You don't get rewarded for being a dick. And the record of 2018, when Republicans lose the House, 2020, when they lose the presidency, 2021, when they lose the Senate, 2022, when they have the worst up and down the ballot result for the out party since the New Deal. And this is one of the other points in the piece. I don't think, the Republicans gained the House of Representatives in 2022, just barely, but they did. So people think they must have had a good election. Except then you look at the whole ballot and think, wait a minute. They net loss of 1 in the Senate, net loss of 2 governorships. Of the 99 state legislatures, Nebraska has only a single chamber, so there 49 states have 2 chambers, Nebraska has 1, that makes 99. Normally, when the president's not on the ballot, the party of the president loses state legislatures. That's just an almost iron law of American politics. You have to go back to the 1930s to find a time when the party of the president did not lose a state legislature. In 2022, the Democrats gained 4 chambers. That's a remarkable result, and a lot of it has to do with just unpleasant behavior.
Wow. So we're speaking with David Frum, the author of Trumpocalypse, Restoring American Democracy, and he's got a new piece out, The GOP is Just Obnoxious, that you can find at theatlantic.com. And David, we have about two and a half minutes here before we hit a hard break I can't control. Where does the Republican Party, I mean, if there was a consensus across the Republican Party that running as a jerk is just like not the thing that's going to work anymore, where do they go? I mean, you've got Republicans struggling with whether they should be open about trying to, privatize Social Security and Medicare. Yeah. You've got, Republicans openly talking about, in fact, introducing legislation to subject women to lethal injection if they leave the state to get an abortion. I mean, it's like I don't see any positions that are that are at the front of this party that can win elections.
There are elections that there are issues for Republicans. Crime. We've been seeing a substantial uptick in crime since 2014 and dramatically so since 2020. Public disorder. I mean, you're in Portland. I mean, Portland is a less orderly place than it was half a dozen years ago. Los Angeles, San Francisco, other great cities. Now, these are not necessarily federal issues, but there is. And
they're not necessarily the fault of Democrats. I mean, we just came through the worst pandemic in history.
It doesn't matter whose fault it is. It matters who's in charge when the problem happens.
Well, that's true.
And the other party gets it. Another issue that is available to Republicans, we have seen a huge drive by Democratic local governments to get rid of tracking and streaming and honors programs in schools, standing up for excellence in education. There are issues, but first, as the rule of politics is, people don't care what you know until they know what you care. Be someone whom people like, and then talk to them about where they live.
Yeah, but it seems, I mean, here we have on Fox News, the Ohio train wreck is because Biden hates white people, right? I mean,
right, that's not going to work. But but championing people where they are, there's always an impulse for that. There's always this is a country with potential conservative support always.
Yeah. No, I totally get that.
People emotionally first.
Yeah, I totally get that, and yet campaigning, building your identity around trying to insert yourself into the private lives of women who want to have an abortion, or people who want to express a different gender, live as a different gender. it seems the antithesis of the leave me alone small government Republicans.
Well, I think that they will discover there is always inventory in politics. There are always issues.
Yeah.
Politics is an exam where the questions always change because the needs of society always change. There's always political opportunity. But you have to begin by showing people you care about them.
Yeah.
No one wants to send someone to the State House, to the mayor's office, to Congress they feel doesn't like and trust them.
Yeah, totally get it. David Frum, a very thought-provoking piece. I highly recommend it. It's over at The Atlantic. The GOP is just obnoxious. And, of course, his new book, TRUMPOCALYPSE, Restoring American Democracy. David, thanks for dropping by. Great seeing you.